History does not repeat exactly, but it often follows similar patterns. Not because people are the same, but because incentives are. When enough incentives line up the wrong way, societies drift toward the same outcomes again and again. Empires rise, expand, feel secure, and then slowly lose balance. Most people living inside these systems don't notice what's happening. Collapse is rarely loud at first. It is usually quiet, slow, and mathematical. When people imagine the fall of a great power, they imagine chaos, violence, and sudden collapse. That almost never happens at the beginning. The early stages feel normal. Life goes on, markets still open, schools still function, the flags still wave. The danger is not in sudden disaster. The danger is in gradual decay that feels manageable until it isn't. Across history, many powerful civilizations followed a similar sequence. Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union, different cultures, different eras, different technologies. Yet the structure of decline looks surprisingly similar, not because of ideology, but because of systems under stress. Every major empire begins with productivity. People work, they create value, they build tools, trade goods, and solve problems. Wealth grows because output grows. At this stage, society rewards effort and competence. The system feels fair enough to function. As success grows, confidence grows, expansion follows. Trade routes widen, influence spreads, military strength increases. Institutions grow larger. This is not a problem by itself. Growth is natural, but growth changes incentives. Eventually, the system becomes complex. Rules multiply, bureaucracies expand, decision-making slows. At first, this feels like progress. More rules mean more order. More institutions mean more stability. But complexity has a cost. It requires energy to maintain. This leads to the next shift. Instead of creating value, more and more people begin managing value. Administration grows faster than production. Layers form. The system still works, but efficiency drops. Output rises more slowly than obligations. At this stage, leaders often turn to borrowing time, borrowing money, borrowing future growth. Debt feels harmless when confidence is high. It smooths problems, it avoids hard choices, it delays pain. This is where many systems enter a dangerous zone. Debt becomes structural, not temporary. It is no longer used to build productive capacity. It is used to maintain lifestyles, promises, and appearances. The system begins consuming more than it produces. History shows that when debt rises faster than real output, pressure builds silently. The numbers become harder to ignore. Interest compounds. Obligations grow. Choices narrow. To manage pressure, systems often turn to currency expansion. More money is created to cover gaps. At first, this feels helpful. It keeps things running. But money creation does not create real value. It only changes distribution. As money supply grows faster than goods and services, purchasing power falls. Prices rise. People feel confused. They are told the economy is strong, yet life feels harder. Trust begins to erode. This is an important moment, not because collapse happens here, but because belief starts to crack. Systems rely on trust. Trust in money. Trust in institutions. Trust in fairness. When trust weakens, behavior changes. People begin protecting themselves instead of contributing to the whole. Short-term thinking replaces long-term planning. Speculation rises, productive investment falls. Everyone feels the pressure, but no one wants to be the first to sacrifice. At this stage, inequality becomes more visible, not always because it is new, but because it becomes harder to ignore. Asset owners benefit from inflation. Wage earners struggle. The gap widens. Social tension increases. Governments respond with more promises, more programs, more spending, not because they are foolish, but because incentives reward delay over discipline. Hard reforms are unpopular. Short-term relief wins votes. This pattern appears again and again in history. Spain funded empire with silver until inflation hollowed it out. Britain relied on debt and currency dominance until global competition rose. The Soviet Union tried to command complexity until the system became too rigid to adapt. The key point is this: collapse does not start when people notice it. It starts long before, in the numbers, in the incentives, in the structure. By the time most people talk about collapse, the system is already deep into the cycle. One of the later stages in this pattern is polarization. As resources feel tighter, groups blame each other. Cooperation declines, trust falls further, simple solutions are offered to complex problems. Emotion replaces analysis. At this point, reality becomes harder to discuss calmly. Data becomes political. Long-term planning becomes rare. Short-term survival thinking spreads. Another sign of late-stage systems is financialization. Instead of building things, the system focuses on trading paper claims. Money moves faster than goods. Markets become disconnected from daily life. Asset prices rise even as fundamentals weaken. This creates a strange feeling. On the surface, everything looks strong. Markets are up, technology advances. But underneath, fragility grows. Small shocks cause large reactions. People often confuse innovation with stability, but innovation does not cancel debt. Technology does not erase incentives. Progress does not remove math. Eventually, the system reaches a stage where adjustments become unavoidable. Promises cannot all be kept. Debts cannot all be paid in real terms. Choices must be made. This is the stage many historians point to as stage 5, not collapse, but constraint. The room to maneuver shrinks. Every decision has trade-offs. Every solution creates new problems. At this stage, the system still functions. People still live their lives, but flexibility is gone. Resilience is low. The margin for error is thin. What happens next depends on leadership, culture, and luck. Some systems reform. They reduce promises. They accept short-term pain to regain balance. Others resist change and push pressure forward. History shows that delay increases cost. The longer adjustments are postponed, the harsher they become. Collapse, when it comes, is rarely one event. It is a series of declines, currency weakness, institutional failure, reduced influence, lower living standards, not overnight chaos, but long-term contraction. It is important to understand that collapse does not mean disappearance. Spain still exists, Britain still exists, Russia still exists. But their roles changed, their power shrank, their influence declined. The lesson is not fear, the lesson is realism. Systems are not moral, they respond to incentives. When incentives reward borrowing, debt grows. When incentives reward short-term thinking, long-term stability suffers. Individuals living inside these systems often feel powerless. But understanding patterns restores clarity. You may not control the system, but you can control how you respond to it. The biggest mistake people make during late-stage systems is assuming the future will look like the recent past. That assumption is costly. Stability breeds complacency. Complacency increases fragility. Another mistake is panic. Panic leads to poor decisions. Fear causes people to abandon discipline, chase noise, and react emotionally. The rational response is preparation, not prediction. No one can time system-level shifts perfectly, but you can reduce dependence. You can increase resilience. You can think in probabilities instead of certainties. Throughout history, those who survived transitions best were not the loudest or the most confident. They were the most adaptable. They kept skills. They kept flexibility. They avoided extremes. They understood that wealth is not just money, it is optionality. The ability to adjust, the ability to wait, the ability to absorb shocks. This is why understanding collapse patterns matters, not to scare, but to orient. When you know where you are in a cycle, you stop expecting miracles and start managing risk. Late-stage systems reward calm thinkers. They punish emotional ones. They expose weak structures and reward strong foundations. The future is never guaranteed, but neither is collapse inevitable in one form. Outcomes exist on a range. The exact path is uncertain. The pattern is not. The purpose of studying history is not to predict dates. It is to recognize structures. Structures change slowly. And when you see them clearly, you stop being surprised. If you understand that systems move through stages, you stop arguing about symptoms and start focusing on causes. You stop blaming individuals and start watching incentives. You also stop waiting for rescue. No system rescues everyone equally. Those who prepare early suffer less later. History is not a story of villains and heroes. It is a story of math, behavior, and time. And math always wins in the end. The question is not whether change will happen. The question is how prepared you are when it does. Understanding the 7-stage pattern is not about fear. It is about awareness. Awareness creates better decisions. Better decisions create resilience. And resilience in any system is the closest thing to real security that exists.